Well, I don't know if I'd do it today.
Where were you born? You were born over there.
No,
born
here. I grew up in Perth. I used to come out with my dad when I was a boy for a week in the August holidays.
Mm.
And I liked it. I used to like going and playing with the sheep pens and hanging around.
A lot of people hate sheep, don't like working with them, but I always enjoyed the sheep work. Well, you gradually get used to it and you'll get to like it.
Funny animal, a bit obstinate sometimes.
Yeah. A lot of people reckon they're stupid, but they're not as stupid as people reckon they are.
Yeah, you're not the first one that said that to me.
Once you get to understand sheep, you can work them a lot better.
I like the dogs. Beautiful. I still have. They're great dogs. Kelpies and collies. They're beautiful animals.
Yeah. Yeah, I was tossing up what I was going to do with my dog when I moved into town. Just before we left, she disappeared, so I didn't have that worry, and I didn't. She was reasonably old. I wouldn't like to have a young dog run around
there. They say that. I remember they used to say that. I don't know. I remember hearing as a kid that a working dog like a sheepdog has to be worked. So they'd be just miserable in town.
Yeah. And I could never really take to these little dogs.
Yeah.
They just don't seem like dogs to me.
See what you mean? Yeah.
I sort of got used to kelpies and I like it. So, well, that's what I consider about a dog size.
Yeah, yeah. Those cattle dogs are pretty good too.
Yeah, blue.
They're blue.
Yeah. Very similar dog, really. Yeah. I'm not quite sure why people in town have these other great big dogs either. Eat a lot of meat.
Maybe they think they're going to be guard dogs or something.
They do frighten some people, but if you don't show fear to dogs, you don't usually have much bother with them.
Where did your boys they all learn in the country? They go down to the city as well. Or in like high school wise.
At the time, my eldest son had finished in Darwin. He couldn't go any higher. Farming didn't look too good.
Mm-hmm.
I said, I think you better have a general education. So I sent him to the senior high school in Northern. And he went to school till he was, I think he left about 16.
Mm-hmm.
And might have been 17. And then the next one, the family was my daughter. She went to the Northern High School as well.
Mm-hmm.
And the last one went to rural. He didn't have to go to Nazareth. I got a agricultural college in Cundon there, just not far from Northern. So yeah. Yeah, I think the younger son going to agricultural college, it was quite an advantage to him. Like he knew how to weld and do a lot of things on the farm. Whereas the other one, he had to sort of pick it up as he went along. But wouldn't be any different now. They're both in their. I got married fairly young. The sons are. Well, the eldest son, he's 50 now. The other one's a bit over 40.
And they're both in farming.
One's almost due east to here, and the other one's on the original farm. It was Woo. They're both similar sized farm, and they're both about the same distance out from the railway line.
These days, pretty computerized sort of affair from what I gather.
Yeah, they use computers quite a bit.
Yeah.
Both got the internet, check up on the weather, and
Yeah.
if they want to go spraying or something, they can.
All the sort of analysing weed and all the sort of stuff.
It's big money these days. Really, it's a worry when you get a year where you don't get any production, like this year looks like it's going to be. There's a big investment putting the crop in.
Yeah, I gather they put the crops in really late this year because of the.
Yeah, and I don't think they're going to be much success unless the season really changes. It just doesn't seem to be getting any rain. Looks like rain, but it doesn't rain.
Yeah, I heard there was a strange summer and a dry winter.
Yeah, so would you like to go out to the farm? You're going to go out to a farm, are you?
Tomorrow, actually, after I finish with you, I got a contact. Hope I'll find them. I haven't been around for farm for not since I came up yesterday afternoon. Sort of settled in. I think I'll turn this thing off.
Where were the farms you went to
when I was a kid?
Yeah, you came up. It was mostly.
Okay, let's start with the name. And then we'll just hopefully ignore it. So if we can start with your name, John.
Oh, John Anderson.
Okay.
Is it?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm on that.
Yeah, I'm standing to a call, but I hope we ignore it. So, I mean, I'll keep an eye on it and have to change maybe a battery or something, but technical. But hopefully, it's not going to disturb us too much. And I think I probably heard talking to Helen, so I've heard part of the story, but well, it's not tech, so I'll ask you again. How long has your family been on the property?
Well, this property was taken up in 1908. My grandfather, on my mother's side, came out from England and settled got a job in Victoria. Decided he didn't like cows and pigs and mud and wet and the cool Cardi goldfields. Kalgoorlie started opening up. So he was working on a farm in Victoria and he had fallen for one of the farmer's daughters. She said, well, he wasn't a man of substance. He didn't have any financial backing, so he went and worked on the goldfields until 1898. And he's on when he went back and proposed to the girl he'd fallen in love with, and they married.
She waited for him.
He was a man of substance by then.
Okay.
And they were going to, and he reckoned that it was no good working on the goldfields, you had to be trading something. And those that were selling foods or foodstuff or water, were the blokes making the money. So he came back to Western Australia with his new bride, and they were going to live at Guildford, because when he come down from Kalgoorlie in October, Guildford was still nice and green with grapevines and wheat nearly ripe. And he reckoned that would be a thriving area to set up a shop in. And his bride was thoroughly disgusted with the look of Guildford in February. The grapevines all looking a bit sick, the wheat all harvested and everything dry. So they went down to Fremantle. And he built a shop in the High Street, and they built a house at 100 Canning Road, which is now Canning Highway. The old house is still there, but it's been built around, and you certainly wouldn't recognise it as the original building that they put up in 1898. And he was a fairly community-minded person. He was on the hospital board down there, and he's on the East Fremantle Shire. And he eventually got up to being mayor of East Fremantle. And they started having children. They had one daughter, and she lived to about 2.5 and died. They had a son next, and we thought, well, once we started on these sons, we'll probably keep going with sons. And the surveyors that were surveying up here, Surveyor Bunteen and Surveyor White, we lived in Fremantle, because Fremantle at that time was bigger than Perth.
Oh
And it was where all the commerce was happening, ships were coming in, goods were going out, skins were going out, wool was going out, wheat was going out, so that was a business place to be. So he accumulated a couple of warehouses, and then one of the surveyors sort of interested him in these blocks up at Werban that he said that this line, railway line, they proposed, the government proposed to bring it up to Miling straight up. And that would be a good place to be. And the other surveyor was down at north of Harvey, and he said, well, there's some pretty good land down here. So he went both ways. He took up 1,200 acres down there, and he took up 4,000 acres up here, and all the families' names. And then about 1920, his wife died. So by then he had a son and 2 daughters.
Yeah.
And had sort of took the wind out of his sails a bit, and he started spending more time up on this area. He had a good manager down at Northern Harvey, and the manager had a couple of sons, and they took over after him, and eventually sold that property to the sons, and his son, he set him up with a shop and a warehouse. And
this is your grandfather?
This is my grandfather, and set up my uncle Jack with a shop and a warehouse, and all he was interested in was motorbikes and motors. He wasn't. So the Depression came, and that sort of paid to the viable business that he had down there. So he spent more time up here until 1934 when he got pneumonia and died. Well, about 1930 he brought home a lumper, which was one of the blokes that worked on the wheat stacks in Werban. And that happened to be my father. Well, he and his brother, they had the Werban stack, the Nugadong stack, and the Waialki stack. They'd build the stacks, and then they were also responsible for loading it back into the railway trucks.
What stacks?
Wheat stack. A 3 bushel bag.
The stacks.
Bags of stacks of wheat.
Yeah.
And when the wheat price fell over, these blokes thought, well, they'll take up shearing. They've got to have something else besides lumping wheat. So they took up shearing. So they had the first mechanical shearing gear in the district, with machine shearing to the blades.
And we're talking about what period now?
This was between 1930 and 1934.
So it was really Depression era.
Yeah, right in the Depression. Yeah, the Depressions, the wheat prices fell over 1929. So my mother married my father, and then he came and worked here, and known him short for a while, and then he joined up the army because he'd come on to 39. My dad had a truck accident, and that put him out of action for a while. And well, labour was scarce during the war because they had 2 or 3 teamsters and a cook for them. So they all went off and joined up. So, but just prior to that, we bought the first 22, the first tractor. Actually, operated all right. Before that, they had a Peterborough, which seemed to spend more of its time bogged. It was a big steel-wheeled 8 or 9 tonne tractor that if the surface was hard, it stayed on top. If the surface was soft, well, it was a total disaster, and there was nothing big enough around to pull it out, so they sort of stuck mainly to horses. So then they probably endured the war years, and 50s, the whole economy started sort of cranking up. There was the war boom, there was land thrown open for selection all around the state. There was clearing going on like it was going out of fashion. Woburn Trading Co., which had been a sleepy little shop in Woburn,
Mm-hmm.
had Fred Clark come back from war service. He used to be down at Dalwallon. He sort of, there was windmills, there was fertiliser, there was fuel, there was groceries. He still had harness gear there. He had a tinsmith who was indebted to him, Snowy Thomas. So he kept working for Fred Clark making galvanised tanks, and they were selling building material and arranging for sheds to be put up, and that was, it was a thriving sort of thing.
Okay.
Electric lighting plants started going in, so where he'd been selling Tillies before, and they were a pressure lamp. He was selling lighting plants which needed batteries every 2 or 3 years and gallons of fuel to keep them going. So it was quite a thriving area.
So boom time.
Yeah, boom time. That flowed through right until the 60s, because then they started getting into got the trace element situation worked out, copper and zinc and moly, and that meant the crop yields were starting to increase. They could crop poorer land or lighter land. Clover, we started getting the right bacteria for clover, and that solved the second year mortality problem that the plants used to germinate all right and then go red and die, because they weren't, the bacteria that was commercial at the time wasn't living over through our dry summer.
Yeah,
So
and that's you're talking about clover. The previous stuff, or the clover that you were growing before that was dying.
Yeah, the new subclovers that they brought out was new to us. It was Geraldton.
Okay. But wouldn't you swap paddocks around every couple of years or something? Like, 1 year grow wheat in it, another year leave it, use it for pasture, or was that not the case?
Yes, well, they were leaving them out 2 or 3 years, but there was a natural bacteria in the soil that did fix nitrogen on heavy country, but on the lighter country, which is fairly acid, we were using a subterranean clover which was called Geraldton, which did better on this acid soil, but it still had its bacteria over. So they came out in 1964 with Woburn WB64, which was a selection out of the commercial varieties of Rosavia that they've been putting on the clover. And they'd picked this off plants that didn't go red and die in the second year. So whether it had evolved, whether it had been there all the time, whether it had been a mixture, we don't know. But once they put that into the commercial lot, by the mid-60s, it was quite possible to run 2 sheep to the acre.
Okay. Yeah.
Up in this area, which was sort of 14-inch rainfall or a bit less. It was really pushing the boundaries. The season had been good for us. And 1969.
It's decided it needs more light.
1969 struck, and there was a drought year.
Okay.
And everyone was stocked up, and overstocked. And sheep were selling for 20 cents a head if you could get someone to buy them. We had a pretty severe storm in October that swept most paddocks bare, just like the Sahara Desert. So, people did all sorts of things. They shot sheep, they gave sheep away, they transported sheep all over the state. Some went out to station country and never came back. And they weren't used to wandering around on 10,000 acres with one watering point where they could, when they come out of a 400-acre paddock, 10,000 acres seems a long while between troughs. A lot of them, I think, just got lost and died. So
Okay. So, alright. And if your basically your grandfather bought the property at first,
yeah,
and as you said, he was already a substantial man, as his wife had put it.
no, as his father-in-law would put
The
it.
father-in-law.
Yeah.
Oh, it's his father-in-law. I didn't pick that up. But I mean, he coming out, it wouldn't actually probably would have been lived a lot better life than a lot. I imagine that a lot of people that had come back or bought land out here, and that's all that they had. You know, a lot of people, the pioneer sort of generation, that they were living really, really rough. I would guess that your grandfather wasn't in that bracket.
No, this was virgin country when he took it up.
Yeah.
And he always had a manager on, so
Yeah.
he was looking after his business in Fremantle,
Yeah.
or going down to Harvey to check on how that was going. And you know, the whole three things were ticking along. Yeah, he probably had a much easier life than
Yeah.
people that just came out with a swag and an axe and a billy and
Yeah.
yeah, you know, even though land I think was, they only paid about 10 shillings or £1 an acre for it. He did pick the eyes out of it.
Mhm.
The surveyors told him what they thought. And that's why we've got locations to 8.
Mhm.
There was a lot of surveyors surveyed first in this area.
Okay. And basically, you were born and grew up in this area.
Yeah, well, I was born in East Fremantle, so I
Mhm.
didn't come back here till I was about 3 weeks old. And,
Uh-huh.
you know,
Great.
yeah, we started schooling up at the Maya Moon School, which was a what they call a dismountable now. It had come from Dalwallon. It was first erected in Dalwallon in 1912.
Mhm.
It went out to Gibbeting in 1918, I think, stayed there until 1925, came out to Cadwalder's Corner in 1925,
Mhm.
changed its name from West Woburn School in 1930 to Maya Moon School because Mrs Arthur, who was another pioneer, they had got a post office agency
Mhm.
and they wanted to call it Bonnie Doon, but there's a mine somewhere in Western Australia called Bonnie Doon, and the PMG department in their wisdom said, no, you can't have two Bonnie Doones, change the name. And they just named their property Bonnie Doon. So they changed it to Maya Moon. You know, it didn't sound much different, satisfied the postal department. And the school took on the name there, but
It's not an Aboriginal name or something?
it's not an Aboriginal name, no, it was just a made up name.
There's like some waterhole or something called that.
Yes, well, there's the Nugadan waterhole. The proper spelling starts with a G.
Mhm.
The surveyors, it's got about 700 or 800 gallons of fresh water,
Okay.
and the surveyors use that as their base camp. And they did sink wells and the government dam, but this permanent water that was there all winter and up until October or November.
Mhm.
And I guess they were fairly careful with water if you knew as soon as you'd finished your water you had to get out of the area or you didn't survive, especially when it was starting to warm up in summertime. So they'd do as much work as they could up to October or November and then head back to the metropolitan area.
I'm going on a completely different tangent. Because when there's pamphlets for Woburn, tourist things, and there's some sort of rocks which seem to be associated with an Aboriginal waterhole in the region.
Yeah, that's just a Nugadan rock hole.
That's
the
it?
one up at Maya Moon.
So does that mean was there an Aboriginal population or tribe that frequented here, or was it?
Well, there were no permanent. They used it as well, I guess they had hunting parties that came through in winter.
Mhm.
But if these water holes dried, they had another rock hole just east of Woburn, at the East Woburn Dam, but on the other side of the road.
Mhm.
and that was just sort of a bit of a depression next to a granite outcrop that they got water from.
Mhm. Well, there wasn't anything permanent population here.
No,
Mhm.
no, as far as I know, there wasn't. We have found grinding stones,
Mhm.
but see the first permanent water is out near Paynes Fine,
Mhm.
and there seemed to be a meeting area at east of Pathara where the Moore mob, Moore River mob, and the Avon River mob, and the Paynes Fine mob all used to meet up for a coffee or
Okay.
swapping wives or sorting out relationships or something, and they had a crockery ground out at Wilgie Hills.
Uh-huh.
And they also had a bit of an ochre mine out there, where they had a red and a creamy coloured ochre.
Mhm. Mhm.
So that would be important to them. The old timers that talk to the Aboriginals reckon this is Badlands area because there's no water.
Mhm.
So that those, when prospective farmers asked them about told them where they're going, oh no, Badlands area. Why? What's wrong with the surveyor said it's good. Oh, no water. So most of the water now is underground,
Okay.
you know, but they had to stick wells for it or put in dams.
Mhm. Okay. And then what was the sort of what was it? Little salmon gums? And is it like rather?
No,
Was that was around here?
it was salmon gum, York gum, jam, gimlet, and going into patches of mallee, tama, tea tree.
The rather like what would be in Dalwallinu in that, you know, that they've got the sort of little bushwalk and
Yeah, well, yeah, in Dalwallinu when you go west of the hospital,
yeah,
there's big salmon gums and wattle.
yeah,
Go back onto the highway south of Boatman's, and it's Wadjul and yeah, it's fairly mixed.
okay,
So through the salmon gum out here, there was all saltwood, just growing there naturally. And another thing that grandfather Harry Woodhouse did, he brought in station cattle, May or June, and then they'd get railed out in September, October. So he didn't have any, had a moment when the feed was green here, and they'd go down to Midland.
okay,
So he said, the property's had cattle on it for a good while.
yeah,
Clearing some of it out there southeast of this house, you could actually see the cattle pads, because they're grazing up on number 8, which has got a lot of granite and jam and succulent scrubs in it. And they had 2 watering points they could go to. And one of them was a well, what we call number 7 well. They'd walk across that, and cattle walk in straight lines or just follow the grade down. So these pads were still evident in the 50s and 60s where the cattle had tramped through. So.
Years and years later. Okay. What else? When did you said? Apparently there was somebody before Dad that, because you said you remember someone from about 45 there.
Yeah, well, in
And from my father's ilk. I mean.
Oh, yeah, well, it was the wool buyer, and I thought it was your dad, but it could have been Sam.
Maybe Sam, or there was a Johnny Shiner I know that was around Dalwallinu.
Well,
Pithara Warren.
yeah, well, he had this dark Dodge Ute, I think it was, but he done it up like a modern and put a tray back on it, all in timber, and as it been, I guess he looked like Estepol, but it'd have to be in Dulux back in those days, a varnish of some sort. So probably be able to put 3 bales on the deck, 2 lengthways and 1 across the back. And then you get another 2 on top of that.
Interesting. Because when I was a little boy, my dad had a truck, I'm surprised that they used utes earlier. So that, I mean, I was born in '57. So sometime like it must have been 60, 61. He bought a ute, my dad. And before that, he had an international truck, is not important. And
Yeah, that was about a ton and a half on
Mm.
a single axle.
just it would have been single. But
Single wheels on the rear axle.
and just this idea has come to my mind that maybe that's sort of maybe at that point he went over from buying just oddments to buying clips. Because I get the impression that the earlier guys, that like there were wool buyers. I've spoken to some people like the children of, and
Yeah.
and also like someone, I don't know if you know Elton Butcher.
Yep.
So he remembered this guy called Johnny Shiner. Maybe he didn't come into this region. And they talk about the older generation as at least in the beginning, coming up with trucks of fruit and vegetables. And then once they'd sold all that, on their way back to Perth, they would take, in the early days especially, they would take scrap metal and whatever they could get their hands on. And first that included maybe a bit of wool, a bit of oddments. I've heard stories along the lines that, they'd go into a shed and, they'd say to the farmer, "What's that?" "It's a bit of scrap metal. Do you want that?" "No, I'll take it." And have a bit of a deal about that. And then there'd be a few bales of oddments in the corner of the shed. And the farmer would, maybe say, "Well, I don't know what to do with that. It's clogging up my shed. You want to take that?" And then and it's sort of the business seems to have rolled on from that sort of, the wool buying business seemed to have rolled on from those sort of beginnings. Does that strike a chord with your memories?
Yeah, well, there were people running fruit trucks that
Mhm.
were later, back in the 60s or late 50s, mid-50s,
Yeah.
through to about the 70s, and then that seemed to die out. I don't know whether the fuel price went up or something.
Mhm.
But they were all, I took it, they all always bought oddments of wool.
Yeah.
If you had half a bale of crutchings, or half a bale of stain,
Yeah.
or a few bags, or some skins, that sort of, when you took and sent them down the store, you got charged classing and repacking and all
Mhm.
the rest of it.
Okay.
But if you got a price on the farm, you knew what you were getting for it before you left the farm, and it was out of your system,
Yeah. Okay.
and there was a few pound in your pocket. So
Yeah, and a bit of cash.
yeah.
You didn't have to deal with freighting and all that junk as well. Okay. And that would have been Jewish guys, or could have been all sorts of people.
Yeah, well, I think during the war, with that joint organisation, JO for wool, it was also commandeered, and that's why they built all those wool sheds down Fremantle to store it in.
Okay.
And the wool buyers, or the wool buyers used to go out in the country, they didn't get a chance. But after the war finished, after the war in Europe finished,
Mhm.
and there was a demand for rabbit skins then, because they were making felt hats out of rabbit fur. It was probably the rabbit skin went round in the band and the chin strap,
Mhm.
and there was a big demand for fibre and leather, and these were quite a valuable community, so people were out picking up little lots, bulking them up in the big lots, and I should imagine selling them quite profitably.
Mhm. Mr. Butcher seemed to think that the private buyers were also managing to buy some wool during the war as well, because he said when the dividends were paid after the war, when the prices went up and they were paying dividends out of the stockpiles and all that, it didn't always go straight to the farmer. If the farmer had sent it straight down to the floor, okay, he'd get his dividends, and if it sold to a wool buyer, the dividends would come through back to the wool buyer. Anyway, that's what he told me.
Yeah, well,
And maybe the wool buyer would pay the maybe then the wool buyer would pay the farmer. I don't know. I don't know about that. Not too clear.
well, I just can't remember. See, we were right. The school was right on the road, and I can't remember any butts of wool going past the school. And being a school kid, you kept an idea of eye on what was going on the road all the time. 'Cause
Yeah.
you knew everyone's vehicle long before it got there by the bangs that made going over the ruts and corrugations and potholes.
Okay.
And I can't remember anyone, but I know the day Japan surrendered,
Yeah.
Mum decked us out with blue, red and white ribbons on our bicycle handbars and handlebars, and we were riding off to school, and we got stopped there by this wool buyer, and it must have been Sam,
Mhm.
to say, what's going on? So there was obviously no wireless in the vehicle,
Mm.
and so it was 45 September, I think, or late August. I can't just remember when.
Is it white? Okay.
It was a fair while ago.
And he didn't know.
No, he didn't know that the war was over.
Huh.
So he stopped us and asked, what's the decorations, boys? And we said, Mum says the war's over, you know.
Okay. So what was your relationship, say, with Dad, with my father? When would that have started?
Well, he picked up a few bucks of oddments, and that was about it. I don't know how often he called round. I got sent away to school after 48.
Okay.
So in the 48-53 period, I was away most of the time.
Yeah.
And I know the shed did have a good clean out in 51, I think it was. We got about £90 for all the little butts and stuff that were sitting around there, and the wool that got trapped under the floor and was always cleaning up. And once it's tidy, we seem to keep it more tidy.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess we picked up a few butts after bail. Occasionally he'd call round, probably
I don't know.
after shearing or after crutching.
He would have. I don't know how much business you did with him. Did you usually sell to the floor? Is it? Did you usually sell to straight to the floor, or did you?
Yeah.
Like the clip would go to the floor.
Yeah, well, the clip would go to the floor.
Uh-huh.
But you'd still have, there'd be a few bags of, if anything with black on it,
Yeah, yeah.
would get put in a bag.
And the oddments.
And you didn't always get a full bale of crutchings or locks.
Yeah.
And if that was sitting in the shed,
Okay.
it went.
Okay. So, because there were some farmers that would, maybe in the 60s and onwards, that would sell their entire clip to the private buyers, and
Yeah.
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 And I don't know. Not everybody did. I don't know if you did or you didn't. Did you always sell all your main clip to the floor, or did you also use buyers for that?
The main clip always went down to the sale floor.
Okay.
And we tried selling in London a couple of times. It was a fair delay waiting for your money, but I think it sold equally what you got here.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember Dave Syme, Mr. Dave Syme, coming back from a trip to England, and he said, I see Lakeview stuck up on the London wool exchange. So apparently he went through the store, and you'd get a surprise, wouldn't you, if you come from Bunteen and found Woburn brand just inside the door there. So, well, you reckon the lighting was shocking over there, what the wool stores are over there are what they are here.
That's a strange thing to send it all. You sent the wools all the way to London?
Yeah. A lot of stations did that.
Yeah? I mean, isn't that adding on freight costs and all that?
Well,
sort
you know, when they buy it here, they take freight out as well. You pay the freight.
Mm-hmm.
And our wool sort of showed up a lot better than the English wool, because the English clips themselves
Mm-hmm.
weren't skirted. They just put them in bundles with the belly and everything swept off the floor, wrapped the legs together and just put it down packed it in at a lorry with a wooden gate around it,
Mm-hmm.
and took it off down to
Down to
the
London?
wool store, like
Okay.
that, not packed, not in a pack at all.
But I mean, that means you could sell to one of the big. You could sort of say to one of the big stock firms here. No, I want to sell in London.
No, they had the London Wool Exchange had buyers out looking for clips in Australia.
Uh-huh. So that sounds like private buying then.
Yeah, well, it was private.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
But once it got over there, it was put up for auction
Okay.
and still on our own.
Ah, that's interesting. 'Cause I never heard of that.
Yeah.
Well, that could have been because John's father was English too. You know, I think
Whatever.
he said at home.
Well, I don't know.
Because he traded in wheat that way too, didn't he?
Well, you had to before the wheat board came in. It was like you listen to the wireless, and then when the Chicago's wheat exchange went up, and you'd say you wanted your 70 cents or whatever it was a bushel, or 70 pence a bushel, and you put it on then.
Hmm. But by the time it got out there, the price was likely to have changed, wouldn't it? I would have thought. Anyway.
Yeah, I don't know. I only did it a couple of times. And
Uh-huh.
came back to sell.
That's interesting. Okay. And getting back to if you identify with the community, would you in this region would be with the sort of community around Woburn, or in the communal sense here
No, Woburn's always been our postal address.
uh-huh.
I've attended meetings in Marling and Pathau and Mora.
All over the place.
All over the place now, you seem to
Yeah.
know. Yeah.
But John, just to add a bit of lightheartedness, for a long time John's mother always came from Dalwallinu, not Woburn, even though our address has always been Woburn,
Uh-huh.
because there'd been at least 3 murders, hadn't there?
Oh no, there was more than that. There was Smith out here, and where Jeskies were, and then Southcott's, or Franklin's were, and Southcott's have got there.
Mm-hmm.
There was that bloke Tapsy knocked over Norm Perfect, got him to drive him down to Dahlia or Pathau or somewhere, and bashed him on the head with a brick. And there was Snowy Rolls. He had a few, get the old prospector's pension card, knocked them off, and then collected their pensions for them. Yeah, Woburn didn't have a very good reputation.
Uh-huh.
It was a safe place to come from.
A bit wild and woolly, huh?
Yeah.
Ah.
Well, I guess that, it was on the road to everywhere, sort of then, and you've got all sorts going through. My dad had quite a good worker here one time, and he'd go like mad working, and then he thought he was all right. And one day the local policeman come out because he picked up a fellow who was making illegal brew, and he dropped in, and this fella just melted out the door and ran, and the policeman didn't see him. But he picked this fellow walking along the road about 3 miles towards Woburn, gave him a lift into Dally, and the bloke thanked him, and the policeman went back to the station, and he had a description there, wanted. And then he sort of looked at it, and he thought, that looked damn like the fellow I saw into town. So he went downtown again, the bugger hitched on the truck, and he was well and truly out of the way, and
Uh-huh.
took him home. They don't know what he was being chased for. a couple was out here a couple of days later. He said, that fella, what was his name that was working for you? And Dad said, well, they're damn all gone. And the copper said, yeah, I know. He said, I gave him a lift into Dowley and then I found he was wanted. So,
Did they ever find him?
I don't know whether they found him or not. It is, you don't hear. We've actually picked up handbags that have been thoroughly emptied out and tossed over on the roadside and taken them to the police, and you don't hear whether they ever found an owner for them or where they came from.
Mm-hmm.
You know, someone's just unloaded something and
Especially if
it's
there's no
over,
identity
it's
thing.
there.
Yeah.
Yeah, they don't seem to follow up and keep it interesting.
Mm. Well, then probably if they didn't find anyone, they would want to hush it up. If they didn't find the culprit.
Yeah, well they wouldn't want to admit the failure, would they?
No. Okay. And no, so one of the things I was sort of interested in is how much these guys that, like my father, sort of, who would spend pretty much 3 or 4 days of the week in the country, based in Woburn and other guys in other places, and work the same region for 2 to 3 decades, in a very regular way,
Yeah.
and how much they'd become or hadn't become part of the community.
Well, I thought your dad was joining the Bunting.
Yeah, as far as he did.
And he was just one of the blokes, I guess, except he's probably hands if he was handling wool all the time, his hands would be a lot softer than most of it.
Maybe. So you basically knew him from there?
But
Is that basically where you knew him from?
yeah,
Through the bowling?
from picking up oddments.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And were you in the bowling club?
No,
No.
but I mentioned that you were coming up to build in
Yeah.
and Bill said, oh yeah, he'll talk to you.
Okay, well I'll take his number. So.
And the other one, I mentioned it to Don, because Don's my son who was shearing for about 15 years. And I said, what do you know about Kenny Franks? And he said, well, you want to get on to Abe Wilton. Abe was B&W shearing, which Brand, he and Brand and Abe Wilton were B&W shearing. And Abe's retired now and he's out at Wildcatching. But Don thinks, you'll find Abe has probably got some quite interesting stories. Because he would have seen your dad in just about, every shed he went to, I should imagine, over the years. Or he'd see him in town.
At the pub?
At the pub, or, yeah.
Okay. Well, if I can get the number, that'd be...
Yeah, well, I'll have a look in the telephone directory, because now we haven't got just one company directory, we've got about 4 of them.
Yeah, I think that's maybe
It's
what
a bit of a pain.
Yeah, because I sort of tried to look up, I looked up contract books. I found a few old contract books, and there were a few names that were very, very familiar.
Yeah.
And then I tried to look up a phone book in Darwin, and I didn't get anywhere with that.
No.
So maybe it's in the wrong region or something like that. Anyway, or they've moved on. Okay, so.
And the other one was John Simon, I think. He sold wool. I know Robbie did.
Oh, I spoke.
John's up at Don.
Malcolm actually wrote to me by email.
Yeah, right.
And he came round. He actually came round to our place, to my mum's place, on Sunday. And the Williams also had been. No, they didn't write by email. Yeah. They'd seen this notice that I put in the paper, and they'd either rung or sent a letter through to my mum's address. So I think that's how I got onto you.
Yeah, well, we've actually bought Malcolm Simon.
Oh, you bought his property?
We bought his property.
There
That's
you go.
my other son is Robert, he's out there.
Okay, that's interesting. So anyway, so Malcolm Malcolm did sell quite a bit to my dad.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I think entire clips as well, as far as I remember. Okay, well, maybe we'll cut it there, unless you have another particular.
Yeah, well, a couple of standout items, like the massive difference is really big, and I think it's promoting a bit of massive growth, massive difference, which I really like, and a lot of this design as well. What are we looking at the moment? That is a Zimmerman drop switch. The drop switch is having a bit of a turn, and Zimmerman has done drop switch for a while, but I love Zimmerman stuff. This is their stuff here now. A lot of customers. This Killer Johnson, her stuff is very orange, with the layers, but she's very sneakers with her walnuts, which I thought was an interesting look. No, it's not orange, with that's my style, wonderful. And one was pregnant at the moment, which is great. So there's something really good for maternity wear at the moment, which is wonderful. But the sneakers and dress, Nisha Bartle's been
Here we go. This is the dark. This was the kitchen. Maybe we've even been.
People here, the last autumn, they all had dogs and things, and
Oh. You know what? The floors used to squeak when I was a kid. Oh wow. So I don't remember if we stayed around here. Well, it looks like it's in the middle of. Typical of the furniture. Crazy. My God. Squeaky old.
Well,
Your name?
yeah,
is
well,
Don?
I'm Don Williams,
Yeah.
now from Badgingarra, but formerly from Waddy Forest, which was in Ken, and I'll call your dad Ken rather than Copel because that's what I always called him.
Yeah, that's fine.
And yeah, so I came home from school in 1962, and he was buying my dad's wool, but then by 1970 he was buying my wool because I'd come here and started running sheep.
And his is, for the sake of the record, is, when you say here?
Here, but your Badgingarra, High Valley
Badgingarra,
Farm, and your dad needed to come this way because the Woburn, Buntain and Dalwallinu areas were starting to fade out from a sheep point of view.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so he was looking for new territory, and he knew me, and he did pick up a few odd clips here and there around here.
Okay.
So yeah.
So, and so you knew moving when you were a boy?
Well, not a boy, but 16 years old was when I
Okay.
first knew him. And I don't think he'd been in the business long then.
Okay. So what year are we talking about?
1962.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
So yeah, no, that's, and yeah, so it was perfect for me because I saw how my dad dealt with him. And then by the time 8 or 9 years later, when I had my own sheep, I knew how to handle him, if you want to put it that way, or how he worked is a better way to put it. And yeah, mainly that was what always impressed me, was this straight out honesty, where you just said it and that was it.
Mm-hmm.
There was nothing written, and it was always, you didn't even have to have a handshake. You just said what the price was,
Mm-hmm.
and that was it. So yeah.
And was it selling more oddments or clips?
Well, both. In that, then what you did, and of course we can tell you now because the Australian Taxation Office are not in on this. Yeah, no, we would buy the clip on commission, as you know about, for Lomans, and then he would buy the oddments like the stains, the bellies perhaps, the cots, and that sort of thing. And then he'd, back at your home obviously, he'd bulk them up into bigger lines.
Mm-hmm.
And of course all this time that I didn't say before, a lot of that time he had that wonderful Toyota Crown utility that was a cut above average.
That would have been early days.
Yeah.
Because afterwards he went on to more Falcons and.
Yeah, that's right.
But in the early days,
he
yeah.
had
About
the
the time.
Toyota Crown
Yeah.
that was...
That grey one.
I've forgotten what colour it had. Everything that opened and shut had radios when no other vehicles did, and heaters and demisters and carpets on the floor, and would carry nearly a tonne when other utes used to carry half a tonne or 800 weight, as they used to call it. So yeah,
Would have been pretty good.
Yeah.
your call.
I don't know.
Yeah. All right. So yeah, well, I mean,
spontaneously.
yeah, well, we've been through this before, but
Yeah.
I'll run through it with the camera again. Yeah, the thing that really impressed me about Ken was just the straight honesty of it all, that you'd agree on the price, a fair bit of haggling, but once you'd agreed on the price, that was it. There was never any going back at all.
Remember the time we had to go outside while Kenny could roar up the man at Lomans. What was the man's
On the
name?
telephone. Oh, look, I really don't know.
Atkins?
I don't know.
I can't remember.
Look at the thing.
I can't remember what his name was, but I remember Kenny was very angry with him. Remember that?
Well, yeah,
Because someone had come here and offered us a price.
that's right. An opposing buyer had offered a certain price. It was a genuine offer, and this chap,
We
and I
had it
said,
written
now,
down.
I said, you must wait till I see my pet wool buyer. And this opposing buyer was sure he couldn't be beaten. And your dad said, well, it does seem a lot. And he insisted that we go outside while he used the phone in here, which we hadn't had for very long then. And there was a very severe argument with the people.
Kenny was yelling.
Yeah, he was actually yelling at them.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they came over, and as he said subsequently, he said, well, there you go, he said they didn't lose money on it, so yeah, he was on our side. That was the good thing.
Tell us some of about the haggling.
Well,
I haven't heard anything like that so far.
when you sold wool then, you called it either sweep the floor, or which meant everything, fleeces, pieces and bellies, you would say, and it would be a price in cents per pound, because by 1964 we'd gone metric, we had dollars and cents, and he would offer a price for everything, and there'd be much, and of course to us we'd always like it to be more than last year, but your dad was obviously constrained by the fluctuating market, and of course he just couldn't pay more than it was worth, because the company couldn't wear that. So there would be much hassling, and then here I know we used to run sometimes like a reverse auction, in that they'd all write their price down and they'd say, oh, that's not fair. Even though your dad was probably still the best out of that. Some of them wouldn't be in it, so I'd say, no, I'll tell you what, we'll put it in an envelope and you'll have to trust me. They'll all be open on a certain day. And most would agree to it, some wouldn't. And once or twice your dad had to participate in that sort of thing, and he did manage to win. So
What was the name of the man that he really didn't like, that other wool buyer?
I don't know.
Something Stein?
No, I don't know. Well, there was a good few. He certainly didn't. There was a lot of them he didn't like, which was understandable, because ironically, some of the Australian ones were a tad unscrupulous and would, if they thought they could get it for less, they certainly would. And certainly with your dad, you could never beat him up much more than 2 or 3 cents a kilogram. With some of the others, you'd just say, just leave the shed, and then they'd go up 10 cents, and then you'd start. But yeah, unfortunately, that's all finished now. And of course, the other thing that your dad was good at, for a brief period, instead of just looking at the wool and trying to estimate what we now call the fibre diameter, you would feel it, look at it. But then we went on to objective measurement, where a machine would test it. And of course, we'd have to push a spear into the bottom of the bale. And your dad was always pretty good, and if he knew which bales had the better wool, that's what he'd test. Because then the price that he could pay was judged on that. And of course, being a little guy, and perhaps by the time he got a bit older, you'd have to do the pushing for him, because he was only a short guy, as you know, and the bales would be stacked up horizontally, and he couldn't reach the top one for sure. The middle one he could manage, and the bottom one, but not certainly not the top one. So yeah, to us it was, I don't know who else has said this, but he certainly was the best wool buyer around. There's no two words about that. And the ironical thing is, the guy now, from what Standard Wool, it's the same company, is a chap I went to school with, so he'll be pretty loyal to the company. So
I remember the time he came here when you weren't home.
Well, no, I don't, because I wasn't
No,
there.
but I told you, and he had angina, his heart pain,
Oh, you were saying.
and my babies were only little, like 5, and they were supposed to be 5 and 1 or something. And he kept putting these angina tablets under his tongue and sitting here, and I knew what he was about. Well, it's all right for you coming here, but here I am with my 2 babies. I don't want you to have a heart attack here, because the nearest hospital is 110 kilometres away. Poor Kenny. Remember?
That's right.
Yeah, and then even after he'd retired, we had your mum and your dad one night, because he got more seriously into bowls, as you may know, and they were on their way to a big country carnival in Carnarvon.
Oh, yeah.
So we entertained them for the night, which was great. So yeah, we certainly miss his company, and he was good. He was good humoured, and could certainly crack a joke. And of course, half the jokes and this is not a weak joke, were Jewish jokes. On, well, not on himself, but on the people as a whole, which was great, really.
Tell him,
So you could,
tell him the joke about when they built the new,
tell me.
what do you call your church?
Synagogue.
Synagogue. Tell him the
Oh
joke.
yes, yeah, all right. Well, here's one of your dad's standard jokes. The synagogue that was octagonal, is it still? In shape.
The one they built at, what was the place?
Menorah.
Menorah, yeah.
Yeah.
The
And
new synagogue.
Ah, yeah, it is
So,
that stuff. It
yeah,
is.
so it's octagonal. And there's a reason for that. If they'd have made it square, the Jews could hide in the corners. But octagonal they can't. And that was your dad's joke. So I thought that was neat. Yeah.
Change that from the from
Yeah,
something
so-
the job we had in high school.
Yeah.
Ah.
Yeah, no,
That was
well,
him.
that was his
And
little
I
one.
remember him telling us that he sent you to kindergarten to year 7 at the Jewish school, but it wasn't the Jewish world. So then you had to go to Trinity. Was it Trinity?
No, I went to a state school.
No, but in the high school, where did you go to?
I went to in high school. I was in Mount Lawley.
Mount Lawley,
The-
and your
the
sister
regular-
went to
she went to
PLC.
PLC eventually.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
I
then
remember
there was private.
We got into trouble with the elders at the synagogue because he sent you to a different school for your high school.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I think that the fact that it wasn't a Jewish school or wasn't one they approved of that he'd sent you to, but he felt it was.
Maybe my sister, not because
I'm not sure either. But
I reckon he's talking about my sister then.
But I think perhaps even the government high school, the elders didn't quite approve, because he did tell us that. But it didn't worry him.
No.
Being his own man,
No, my mum wanted me to go to some Hale or one of those
Yeah.
schools.
but
I
apparently,
didn't want to go.
apparently he'd come under some pressure from other members of the community as well.
Yeah, that's strange.
That was what he told us, and he didn't tend to bend the truth
Too
much.
much.
So I'm
Say
sure
about
he.
when you went to Israel.
Oh, yeah, and of course, in your case, he really was. He really felt that he'd made a gross error in
Waste
your
of a
life
good
plan
education.
by going to Israel. Yes, you'd wasted all that education, and you're only going to Israel.
Kibbutz.
Yeah, that's right, to a kibbutz of all things.
Oh,
So, he was. I suppose he accepted it, but he was telling us it wasn't a good idea.
Yeah.
But that's life. That's what dads do.
Don't they?
Yeah, they do.
Now I do it.
Yeah.
I'd like to hear you were explaining something about the Karoo, the bowling.
Oh yeah, he used to go and play scroungers at the bowls in Karoo, and he used to play up with Don's dad and my dad at the Karoo pub. And one day he came out and he'd say, "It was your father's fault, that I woke up with my shoes on." With a big grin from ear to ear, of course, but I think he did have a bit of headache that day.
What was it? You said something earlier about your brother had
Used
some
to-
sort
yeah,
of
My
remembering.
brother used to call him the woolly man.
No, our boy.
Yeah, and Ian used to
Did
too,
he?
as a young boy. And our boys used to call him the woolly man because they liked his roll of notes. He always had this big roll of notes. And he could peel off some notes for Don to buy some wool, couldn't he?
Yeah, I thought I did that because some of the smaller lines you could sell for cash, which were pretty important when you were a poor farmer. And of course, he'd make a big thing. It was more show than anything else. The boys would each get, say, or a $2 note. You could have green $2 notes then, and of course it would really be part of mine, but he'd make a thing and give it because you couldn't take it back off your boys then. But he'd give them one each, and but that was still good. It was good for the boys, and they certainly worshipped him. They thought he was God, not just a commoner. So they really did, because he just handed out the money with no strings attached. So that was. And he was always interested in how the family was coming on.
He used to come for lunch, didn't he?
Yep, because often, perhaps a bit like you on this trip, he'd have gone Dalwallinu, Woburn, Carew, seemed to be the normal direction, and then here, calling in on people, as you said earlier, who've moved from Carew westwards on the way, and then we'd be the last people and then be off to Perth, so Friday afternoon. And so we'd get him Friday lunchtime and then it would be off to Perth. Because he was a Monday to Friday guy, as you might remember.
Yeah, Thursday. It'd been free on Friday.
Yeah, that's it. So
I suppose.
yeah, he was good like that to you guys, obviously, and that he was always home. Whereas some of the other, I suppose, less productive, efficient, or well organised guys would stay in the country for weeks on end.
Was he the first man that started Loman's paying for us to cart the wool?
No, that was their own. No, that was.
But he used to like to do that.
Yeah, no, it was just their own thing.
I think that was one of the trade-offs of selling to a private firm.
Yeah.
Was that they took care of all the freight.
Yeah, and see what happened there. That was an interesting thing. Not so much tied up with your dad, but here where we are so far from a railway line, we were in what was called a free transport area, whereas all of Dalwallinu, Woburn, Bunteen and Carew and Marchigee, you had to put your wool on rail because the government needed the money. So here we were so far away we were allowed to cart our wool to Fremantle. Cantonment Street was where the store was then, and of course that was old, 150 years old, the street. And a couple of things were funny. First of all, of course, to make it worth your while, they had to pay you. Otherwise, you would put it on the rail wagon. But it was better for those guys on the truck because it was easy to get off. Because in the rail wagon, you'd stuff the wool in, and they'd have a battle to get it out. But the problem in Cantonment Street was it was an old, it's a port town, and our truck was, I suppose, average, perhaps a little bit bigger than average for the era, and they used to have to send a man out to stop all the traffic. One truck was a little bit over, which was about 8'4" in old measurement, and I'm sure the alleyway you had to back down was about 9 foot, and there'd be all these old timers giving you advice. You'd have to pull your mirrors in so they wouldn't hit, and because that was outside your dad's field, but it was part of his business, and it was quite a circus.
So this was in Freo?
In Fremantle, yeah, Cantonment Street, you should go there. And just imagine what I had to, and my dad, he was quite capable with trucks, but he wouldn't drive there, so as soon as I got a truck licence, that was my job. And
Tell me about the transport man.
yeah, and of course, yeah, so what we used to do to cheat a little bit, because see, and this, the rule's not on there, so I can say this, and it's that time thing too. And if I go to jail, you'll all come and visit me. No, but
there's a law. What's it? The statute of limitations.
That's the one.
So
It's got to see it. But the amount of money they pay you made it relatively lucrative to cart the wool. So people
Especially
like
when
us,
you had things to bring back.
people like us who had a farm in the restricted transport area would half load the truck there, leave at 10 o'clock at night and come on to here and then top the load up here, and then we'd be right. Because when you got to Fremantle or somewhere near to Perth, the transport inspector, there was every chance he would pull you up, and he'd want to look at your wool, and more just to narc the guys, I would stack the wool with the brands downwards and inwards. And they'd say, why do you do that? And I'd say, well, if it rains, they don't get wet and wash off. They knew otherwise, but of course they couldn't legally make you untie it and turn them up, but I only used to do that to tease them because we were covered, and it was quite a autocratic business, because one night we got pulled up north of Perth at about 9 o'clock at night, and then next morning at about 6:30 or 7 o'clock, the same chap pulled me up just outside the wool stores, and I said, look, you know, you saw me last night, and he just said, no, well, it's different day, different book. So, yeah, there was things have changed, and on that tack,
Work out where.
because I don't know if you knew, but your dad also had a little sideline at times importing wool packs.
Oh, I don't know,
Yeah.
him or a friend, yeah.
Yeah, and well, he used to bring them out and sell them, and yeah, we used to buy the wool packs off him, and they were genuinely more economical than ones you would buy off Elders or West Farmers or whoever the rural supplier was. And of course, the packs then were jute, of which we used to think were great. Then we went to polypropylene ones,
Yeah.
which were horrible, we thought, because they would slide, and if we were carting wool the mere 10 or 20 miles to the rail, mostly we hardly ever tied the jute ones on. They'd just sit there and we'd go 3 high and no ropes. As soon as we got the polypropylene ones, there was wool bales everywhere. Point where I actually lost one in Belmont, anyway, in a street in Belmont.
In front of a
And
police
didn't
car.
even know, you nearly fell on an unmarked police car, and the guys were good enough to pull me up,
And
and,
guy crashed it.
organised me to do a U-turn to go back
I
and
saw
get it,
Yeah, we
and then it got stolen before we could get back.
Ah.
But anyway, yeah,
We
so,
lost a
but
few.
your dad seemed to get out of the wool pack business to me when the jute one stopped. I think that was about,
No, I think.
it
I
was
think
certainly wasn't as intensive. He may have,
I didn't know that.
because this is all a long while ago, you see.
No, but
Or
he used to, they'd have those, the silic,
Yeah.
not the silicon.
Polypropylene.
Yeah, those ones he did.
Yeah.
I remember him selling.
Mm. And of course we had several series of those ones, and now we've gone on to the white nylon ones that are probably better to hold together,
Very
but
expensive.
shocking with water because the water gets into them. So yeah, so that's
What did you? I didn't understand the bit where, like, you said half a truckload, or what you take stuff from other farms.
Okay, so the other farm was in the restricted transport area, where you had to put the wool on the rail.
Ah, from your dad's place.
Yeah, from my dad's farm.
Ah.
So what
After
we do,
tea.
after you'd have the truck loaded on the farm, but at 9 or 10 o'clock at night, because these transport inspectors were government employees, so they didn't work at night. You would then come here
Sunday
with
night.
half a load
Me
because
show
that
that
was
one.
easy,
Okay.
and then we'd top it up here, fill it up, and then let them think it had all come from here. And the reason we did that was not to be illegal, but because the price that Lomans were paying them to cart the wool was made it well worth running the truck,
Yeah.
and even more so if you had something to bring back
Mm.
from the metropolitan area.
Yeah.
So it was and yet, of course nowadays no wool goes on rail at all, and they genuinely liked it better on the truck because it was a whole lot easier to unload from a road truck than a rail truck, and to the point where once or twice when we got more modern and had a tipping tray or a tip truck, when they were really busy they would let you just tip the lot off. And
And why did you get to the wool store so early?
why did we get to the wool store so early? Because the guys in the wool store started work at about 7, and you needed the day to run around Perth in
No,
your
but you
truck.
used to get there before the road train.
Oh, yeah, and well, no,
For the big
yeah,
semis.
before the bigger trucks, and also before the traffic got too thick.
Well, like you drive all night. You
Yeah.
drive in
Yeah,
through the
that's
night
right,
and then.
No,
yeah.
I used to stay at his grandmother's.
Well,
in
sometimes I
North
used to
Perth.
stay in the metropolitan area, and
In
then
his
other
little
times I would just leave very early,
Mm.
which is what you do, I guess, when you just get used to it.
Mhm.
Well, sometimes I would actually would drive into the wool store yard, get there, say, 2 o'clock in the morning, and then wait there until they get there in the morning.
Mm.
So to be farmers like that, we must be a bit silly, mustn't we? And here we are.
Bend the
still-
rules.
Well, here we are, still hoping that wool's going to make it one day, and we'll have it come back like the Korean War.
Until now, Kenny was very nice to one of our friends who pre-sold to Kenny. And Kenny really looked after him.
Who was that?
Trevor.
Oh yeah, well there was a time when they went through this silly business of, didn't last for long, but the companies would buy the wool on the sheep's back, which was pretty dodgy, and I never liked it. But my opinion was the companies would only be doing that if they thought it was going to go up. And of course their advertising would lead you to believe it was good because if the wool went down you still got paid. But mostly the wool would go up and people would get a bit distraught. But your dad once or twice managed to wangle to tear the contract up because it did seem to me to be a silly way to do it, but that's the way they... It was just a thing, I mean it wasn't your dad's idea, it was would have been a Loehmann's and Standard, and all companies were doing it for a while. And certainly with a volatile commodity like wool, it doesn't seem like it was a good idea.
I've heard, I can't remember from whom, one farmer actually did very well out of it. So maybe he thought, he realised that it was going to go down.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, sure there would be times when it would work, but mostly the company, just logically, the company had to offer a conservative price because the company can't afford to get caught too often.
Yes.
So they've got to make money too. So anyway, we never ever participated in that sort of scheme, and it didn't last that long. I don't think anyone, sometimes now different wool firms will give you what they call a shearing advance, where it's a loan to see you through shearing.
Ah, yeah.
But, and that's probably a better setup, and then all it does is lock you in to them. But of course now, I don't know if I've said in this interview, we don't sell much wool privately, not anyone, it's nearly all auctioned, and Standard, which was Loehmann's, are big in auction now.
Ah, yeah.
And private rather than private buying. So yeah, so how's that?
Good.
Yep.
Well, you had some memories, or maybe between the two of Sam Wendy. You think?
Oh yes, yeah. Well, Sam was as I saw it, the predecessor. Is that right? Yeah, it was came before your father, and he was a big gentleman, a big portly guy, and yeah, he was much the same. He was very straight up and down, and I guess as a kid in the shed where kids always were, I can't remember a time when he didn't come, and yeah, he had a very thick accent, but was also very good at his job, and yeah, it must have been harder for him because his language he wasn't as articulate as your father, and it must, in hindsight, it must have been quite difficult for him to, because Australian farmers then must have been fairly conservative, and but he certainly fitted in all right, and yeah, he was, and I mean, you'd know better than I what happened to him after he left.
And he was always very well presented, and his shoes were highly polished.
Yeah, that's right.
He never seemed to get sheep manure on them, even though he went in the shed, did he?
No, he was always, yeah, he always dressed very neatly.
Dainty-footed.
Yeah, and his trademark was not a coat, but a nice woolen jumper. I don't know if you remember that, but certainly in the country he always had a tie and a woolen jumper, not a coat.
Did he used to get his shoes from one of your relatives?
No,
We
didn't have. No.
I thought he said in South America or
No, I
something.
don't think so.
Ah, he had a cousin
In his shoes.
in shoes in Canada and maybe in New York.
Yeah.
But I don't know. That was maybe
No,
the odd maybe
Yeah.
Yeah.
in about 77 they visited.
No, because
I remember showing us
like
his
all
shoes.
of us, he didn't waste money, so
No.
I don't
No.
think he would have.
No, but I remember
I
him
think he
showing
would
us
have
these
lashed
flash
out and bought
shoes.
the polish rather than buy the flash shoes. But no, he was always very well presented, and yet could still talk to all the shearers who were a scruffy a lot then than they are
And
now.
I liked him.
And yes, Joyce said earlier, he did used to have a few
Neil
not
John.
quite on the take as you might say, but he would get a very modest consideration for letting him know who was shearing where and when. So that was obviously good money well spent on your dad's behalf, because it would save him a lot of driving around. Because remember, a lot of farmers didn't have telephones then, only a small percentage did, and it was difficult for him to know. No mobile phones, of course, so
Yeah.
he needed this sort of information so he could know where to go.
It's going to run out.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. Wonderful. He was a great all-round guy. Who,
Put that